Good evening, one and all. The topic of my presentation is auditory neuropathy spectrum disorders. Now let us understand what is auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder. Auditory neuropathy, generally what happens in auditory neuropathy patient is that the hearing threshold, when you look into it, can vary anything from normal hearing to profound hearing loss. The otoacoustic emissions are usually present and the cochlear microphonics are usually also present, but cochlear microphonics are usually prominent and ringing in nature. The presence of photoacoustic emission and cochlear microphonics suggests that the cochlear function is absolutely normal, but the auditory brainstem responses are either abnormal or either absent. The speech perception scores are very poor, and the speech perception score, they don't correlate with the pure tone audiogram. That is, if I give an example, even though they will have a very mild hearing loss, the speech perception score might be 0%. They also have absent middle ear muscle reflexes. Looking at the pure tone audiogram, the pure tone audiogram is less predictive than those of patients with conductive or sensory neural hearing losses. In the auditory neuropathy cases, sometimes it may be a patient with a normal hearing, sometimes the patient might have a profound hearing loss. Very difficult to say that, what is that the next patient is going to have the loss. Configurations are usually flat, but a smaller but notable percentage of the patient also display a rising audiogram pattern. They typically have a low frequency sensory neural hearing loss. The hearing loss varies from normal hearing sensitivity to profound hearing loss. And in most of the cases, the hearing loss is bilateral and symmetrical, with a few patients have normal hearing in both ears, and also a percentage of patients, around 5% of them, have a unilateral hearing losses. 14% of such patients will show a progressive hearing loss over the period of time. And many patients, what will happen is the threshold will dramatically fluctuate from day to day or even during a test. And this particularly happens in patients who have temperature sensitive auditory neuropathy. Now, these patients will demonstrate poor audiological findings when body temperature is raised by as little as 1 degree C, 1 degree Celsius. But when the body temperature becomes normal, the audiological findings also will become normal. The middle ear muscle reflexes is typically absent or it is abnormal. And middle ear muscle reflexes, if you find a patient with a unilateral auditory neuropathy, then middle ear muscle reflexes in the normal ear it will be present, but in the ear where the auditory neuropathy is there, it will be typically absent. Moving to the otoacoustic emission, the otoacoustic emissions are always present in patients with auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder. Few individuals it is present but disappears over a period of time, and that happens either because the patient might develop a conductive hearing loss over a period of time, or what happens is that if the hearing aid is being given, if the hearing aid output is not correct, if it is higher, then it will damage the outer hair cells, and hence the otoacoustic emission will disappear over a period of time in few patients. Usually, when you look at the amplitude of otoacoustic emission, it is higher in auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder patients compared to the normal individual. If you look at the data, the mean amplitude of OA in normal hearing subject is about 11 dB SPL, whereas in auditory neuropathy, it is roughly about 16 dB SPL. There are also reports of completely absence of acoustic emissions in these patients. But despite in some of the patients, when they have absence of photoacoustic emission, the cochlear microphonics continues to present in many patients. And that suggests that the cochlear microphonics and the otoacoustic emissions, although they are generated from the same outer hair cells, but they represent different phenomena. Moving to the electrocochleography findings in auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder patients, you will see that generally what happens is that in auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder, we have three potential: cochlear microphonics, the summating potential, and the axon potential, which is present in normal hearing subjects. But what happens in auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder is that when you record this, you will find a long ringing cochlear microphonics during the recording of electrocochleography in auditory neuropathy spectrum disorders. So basically, you have to record the electrocochleography using the rarefaction and the condensation polarity. This is another type of long ringing cochlear microphonics which we got in one of the auditory neuropathy patients. Here, if I just ignore the upper waveform, this waveform looks like a typical electrocochleography waveform. But when we inverted the polarity, we found that this was inverted. This one was cochlear microphonics was inverted, and when we recorded with the alternate polarity, it was completely absent. So this is another form of cochlear microphonics which will be present in auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder. Moving to the auditory brainstem responses, there are different patterns of auditory brainstem responses which you get in auditory neuropathy subjects. Now here this is one pattern wherein there is a complete absence of the waveform, and in most of the subjects with the auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder, they have a bilateral absence of auditory brainstem responses. This is another form of ABR which will be present when you record the ABR in rarefaction and condensation polarity. You can see that in the beginning of this one waveform, you will see that the polarity is getting inverted, and this suggests the presence of cochlear microphonics in the ABR waveform in few of the subjects wherein there. However, whatever the waveform you are getting, despite of that, you have to understand that the hearing threshold cannot be estimated by ABR in auditory neuropathy subjects. This is another variant of auditory brainstem responses which is present in auditory neuropathy subject. As you can see that there is a small wave 5 here which is present, but it is very broad and very distorted form. This is the third variation of auditory brainstem responses which will be present in patients with auditory neuropathy spectrum disorders. Looking at the vestibular deficits in auditory neuropathy spectrum disorders. Now, as we know that the cochleovestibular nerve contains two branches, cochlear nerve and the vestibular nerve. So when there is a problem with the cochlear nerve, every chance is there that the patient might have a problem with the vestibular nerve. The incidence of the vestibular neuropathies in patient with auditory neuropathy is not known. There are some studies wherein people have done, many researchers have done various tests, and based on that, they have estimated that around 80 to 100% of the patients with auditory neuropathy have vestibular issues. Now, this vestibular issues, although it is present, it is not seen because of the bilateral distribution of the disorder and slow progression of the disease, which is happening over the period of time. 80% of the subjects have an abnormal WEM, and the video head impulse shows a reduced VOR gain in for all the 6 semicircular canals, and the caloric test shows bilateral hypofunctions. Some of my work in auditory neuropathy and vestibular system, wherein we have found that almost 80 to 100% of all the auditory neuropathy subjects have vestibular issues. But there are major concerns which are there in auditory neuropathy subjects. Now, the first concern is that most of the patients which we get in our audiological clinic, they fall in the age range of 12 to 20 years. So either during the onset of the puberty, or 6, 7 years, 8 years down the lane of the onset of the puberty, this problem is coming. So is there any relation with the hormone, changes of hormone and auditory neuropathy? It is not known. And also that most of the cases reporting to audiology clinic here, we have most of the patients who are from economically poor background. So we do not know whether nutrition has to do something with the auditory neuropathy part. The another bigger problem is that hearing aid does not benefit in these patients, and the success of with the cochlear implant is also not very convincing for all the individuals. So that every patient who go through the cochlear implant will get benefited with the amplification. Now, there are also no tests that can differentiate between the lesion of the ISC from the synapse and that from the nerve, and that makes a major problem in these cases. There is another challenge, that is there are few of the researchers across the world who have done the MRI scan in these auditory neuropathy patients, and they have found that these children with auditory neuropathy had cochlear nerve deficiency. So either they had a thin auditory nerve which was present, or there was no auditory nerve that was present at all. So this is another challenge which we have to see whether the patients really have an auditory neuropathy or whether they have a cochlear nerve deficiency also. I thank you, and thank you Team NESCON again for providing me this opportunity to present the topic here. Thank you one and all.